Millionaire slapped pregnant wife at hospital, but her CEO father destroyed his company in court. The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway glared cold and merciless as Elena stumbled backward, her trembling hands instinctively shielding the life growing inside her. The sharp sting on her cheek was nothing compared to the shattering pain in her heart. Her husband, her once loving protector, had raised his hand against her, here of all places when she was carrying their child. Nurses froze in shock, whispers rippling through the sterile corridor like a wave of disbelief. Elena's tears blurred her vision, but she could still see the outline of her husband's face, twisted in anger, flushed with arrogance, blind to the fragility of the woman before him. That single slap was not just an act of cruelty. It was a betrayal so deep it cracked the foundation of everything she thought her life was built upon. Before we dive deeper into this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength to rise even when broken, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching stories. Your support helps keep these stories alive and spreading warmth across the world. Elena sank into a chair, trembling as the nurses rushed to her aid. Her hand instinctively caressed her belly, praying her unborn child was safe. The man who should have been her shield in this moment of vulnerability had become the one she needed shielding from. Only months ago, she had stood in a white dress, glowing with love, believing she had married not just a millionaire, but a man of integrity, a man who would cherish her. But beneath the tailored suits and the charming smile lay a temper fueled by entitlement, and when the pressures of his crumbling investments collided with her gentle concern, he had chosen violence. She stayed silent, as she often did, absorbing the humiliation like a wound she would hide under layers of forgiveness. But deep within, something shifted. That night, when she returned to her parents' home, her father noticed the faint red mark still lingering on her cheek. He did not ask, he did not need to. A father knows when his child is suffering, and Elena's silence screamed louder than any words ever could. Her father, Alexander Grant, was no ordinary man. He was a titan in the corporate world, a CEO whose calm authority had toppled rivals and built empires. But to Elena, he was simply her father, the one who once carried her on his shoulders, who once bandaged scraped knees, who once whispered bedtime stories about courage. And now, as he looked at his daughter, heavy with child, yet crushed by betrayal, something dangerous awoke in him. A father's wrath cloaked in the armor of justice. Days passed, and Elena's husband continued to thrive in his arrogance, flaunting his wealth at parties, dismissing whispers about his temper. But Alexander was moving silently, like a storm gathering beyond the horizon. With each document he read, each silent call he made, the fortress his son-in-law had built began to show cracks. The man thought himself untouchable because of his millions, never realizing that behind the quiet strength of his wife stood a man who controlled billions. A man whose influence reached judges, boardrooms, and governments alike. When the case finally reached the court, Elena's husband walked in with a swagger, confident in his lawyers and his money. He looked at Elena across the room with a smirk that dripped with condescension, certain she would crumble under the weight of shame. But when the judge entered, his smirk faltered. For there, standing firm as the storm itself, was Alexander Grant, his wife's father, the very man who owned the courtroom with his presence alone. Evidence poured in, testimonies of mistreatment, records of fraud buried beneath his empire. Stories of arrogance and cruelty whispered by former employees who finally found courage to speak. Every secret he thought hidden came alive in that room. Elena sat quietly, her hands folded over her stomach, not seeking revenge but justice for herself, for her child, for the love she once believed in but was denied. And as a husband's world unraveled piece by piece, the slap he had delivered in arrogance returned to him multiplied. Not by a hand but by truth and law. The company he once ruled was dismantled, assets stripped, power dissolved. But the greatest blow was not financial. It was the sight of Elena walking out of that courtroom with her father's hand protectively around her, while he was left behind, small, and broken, stripped of the pride that had once consumed him. For the first time, he understood that wealth without honor was nothing but sand slipping through trembling fingers. Elena rebuilt her life slowly, not with riches, but with dignity, love, and the gentle support of her father. When her baby was born, she held the child close, whispering promises of safety, courage, and kindness. The slap that once nearly shattered her had instead ignited the fire of resilience within her. And though scars remained, they became a testament to her strength, a reminder that no storm, no betrayal, no cruelty could ever define her worth. Her father remained her rock, watching with quiet pride as she blossomed into not just a mother, but a woman who had walked through fire and emerged whole. And when people spoke of Alexander Grant, they no longer just called him a titan of business. They spoke of him as the father who defended his daughter, who reminded the world that power used for justice is the greatest wealth of all. If this story touched your heart, if you believe every woman deserves respect, dignity, and love, please like this video, share it so others can feel the power of hope, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that bring light into the darkest corners of life. Your engagement is not just support for us. It is a message to the world that kindness and justice matter. And before we end, special request, drop a comment below with the words respect and justice if you believe no woman should ever suffer in silence. Your voice matters. Audience Elena had not always known pain. Once, her life had felt like a fairy tale spun from dreams. She had met Adrian at a gala where chandeliers glittered like stars and violins played softly in the background. He had charmed everyone with his smile, but it was Elena's quiet laughter that caught his attention. He wasn't just handsome, he seemed kind, attentive, a man who listened when others only boasted. When he asked her to dance, she had felt the warmth of being truly seen. Her father had been cautious, but Elena's heart was young and hopeful. Against the backdrop of roses and promises, she fell in love. At first, married life seemed perfect. Luxury cars, a mansion that overlooked the city skyline, parties filled with powerful names, everything many women would envy. But Elena, though grateful, never asked for those things. What she craved was warmth. And in those early days, Adrian gave it freely, morning kisses, whispered dreams of the future, hands resting on her growing belly when they learned she was expecting. Yet, as months passed, shadows began to crawl into their paradise. Adrian grew restless, irritable, his voice sharp when business went poorly. The empire he had built with reckless ambition was trembling, and instead of leaning on the woman who loved him, he lashed out. It began with words. Dismissive comments, sharp insults disguised as jokes at parties, cold silences that lasted for hours. Elena told herself it was stress, that he still loved her, that things would change once the baby arrived. But the night at the hospital shattered that illusion forever. When his hand struck her, it was as if every whisper of doubt she had ignored turned into thunder, telling her the truth. She was no longer safe in the arms of the man she married. Alexander began gathering evidence quietly. He was a strategist, after all, a man who had built empires not with brute force but with precision. Investigators were hired, financial statements dissected, employees interviewed. One by one, the ugly truths spilled out. Adrian's fraud, his mistreatment of workers, his bribes to cover up scandals. Elena watched, torn between sorrow for the man she once loved and relief that justice was finally within reach. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Journalists scribbled furiously, cameras flashed outside, and whispers filled the air. Elena walked in slowly, her head held high, though her heart raced. Every step she took was for her child. Adrian sat across the room, arrogance still etched on his face, but when Alexander rose to present the evidence, his confidence wavered. The trial stretched for days. Testimonies poured in: maids who had seen Elena's silent tears, secretaries who confessed to covering up financial crimes, even investors who admitted being misled. Piece by piece, Adrian's empire crumbled before his eyes. The man who once thought money was power realized true power lay in truth and justice, in the unyielding love of a father protecting his daughter. The final verdict was thunder in the silence. Adrian lost everything. His company was dismantled, his fortune gone, his reputation ruined. But the greatest punishment was knowing he had lost Elena forever, not to another man, but to her own strength. She walked out of the courthouse with her father, carrying her unborn child, her dignity, and the quiet pride of survival. Months later, Elena gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She held him close, tears streaming down her cheeks, whispering promises of safety and love. Her father stood by her side, smiling through tears of his own, knowing his daughter had endured the fire and emerged stronger.